I am your host, Innocent Semosa, standing in for Thami Ngubeni. This is where we meet to look at the latest in Africa news and sport. Well, we are on broadcasting live from Auckland Park in Johannesburg, South Africa. We're on DSTV Audio Bouquet, channel 802. On Open View on channel 628, and of course we can stream us live on YouTube on www.channelafrica.co.za, as well as the SABC Plus app available on Google and Apple Play Store. But also you can send us your stories and news at newsroom at channelafrica.co.za, or alternatively you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. Also tell us where you're sending the message from. We love hearing from you. This is Africa in Business on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Business, trade, and investment opportunities that put the continent first. Africa in Business with Thami Ngubeni.
On to this story now. Despite global economic uncertainty and geopolitical tensions, African chief executive officers, CEOs, are showing renewed confidence in the continent's growth story. That's according to the KPMG's 2025 Africa CEO Outlook Survey, which captured insights from 130 CEOs across Southern Africa, or should I say Southern, Eastern, and Western Africa. Channel Africa's Lebohang Mabange reports.
The 2025 Africa CEO Outlook reveals that nearly 8 out of 10 African CEOs are optimistic about business growth, and almost all expect to expand their operations in the next 3 years. The survey forms part of the KPMG's Global CEO Outlook, now in its 11th year, and features perspectives from more than 1,300 CEOs across 11 regions worldwide. Benson Ndungu, CEO and senior partner at KPMG East Africa, explains the background behind the survey.
This survey is anchored on the KPMG Global CEO Outlook Survey, which is in its 11th year. That survey covers about 1,300 plus CEOs from some of the largest corporate organizations in the world, from across 11 regions. And those regions include Africa. So I'm very proud that we have, in the second year in a row, been able to launch this as One Africa.
As global headwinds continue to shape the business environment, CEOs across the continent are demonstrating resilience in the face of uncertainty. Ndungu says navigating volatility has become a defining feature of African leadership.
Over the years, in leading through volatility, I think as CEOs, there is a clear demonstration of a resilience. The geopolitics space, in particular, over the last 12 months or so, has become increasingly volatile, and you'll have experienced it in your day-to-day. That links to the economic uncertainty that you see across the globe. So supply chain disruptions, whether it is trade, the impact has been immense.
A standout finding from the survey is Africa's bold approach to artificial intelligence. While the global average AI investment stands at 14% of corporate budgets, African CEOs are committing significantly more. Ignatius Sihule, CEO of KPMG South Africa, says the continent is determined not to be left behind in the AI revolution.
And one of the heartwarming things that I picked up in the survey is that, in general, African CEOs are looking at spending at least 20% of their budgets on AI. The global norm is about 14%. We're spending a bit more. Now, that tells me that, one, I think this is the one particular race that we're not going to be left behind in. That tells me that Africa will not wake up one day and the whole world is disappeared into the distance as far as AI is concerned.
While optimism is strong, challenges remain. According to Gerald Kasimu, partner and head of advisory at KPMG Africa, CEOs are focused on tackling issues around technology integration, regulation, and cybersecurity.
In spite of the optimism, there are many challenges, but the top three that come through relate to integration of AI into organization processes and systems. Of course, regulatory pressures remain typical issues, as we have seen in previous years. And then lastly, integration of AI into workforce roles and responsibilities within the organization.
With 86% of CEOs eyeing mergers and acquisitions over the next 3 years, KPMG says Africa's leadership is betting on innovation and sustainable growth to drive the continent forward, turning global headwinds into opportunities for transformation. Reporting for Channel Africa, I am Lebogang Mabange in Johannesburg, South Africa.
AUSISA, the Association of Water and Sanitation Institution of South Africa, is a platform uniting Africa's water professionals. This November, Africa leads the conversation on water and sanitation. Join global and African leaders at the AUSISA Africa and Global South Dialogue 2025 from the 9th till the 12th of November at the Emperor's Palace, Johannesburg. From policy innovation, this is where action meets collaboration for a water-secure future. Register today at ausisa-watersan-dialogue.org or follow at AUSISA on social media. AUSISA, working together for sustainable water and sanitation security in Africa. Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
You are listening to Africa in Business on Channel Africa. The time is exactly 16:13 Central African Time. Let's pick it up on this story now. Nigeria's trade relations with the United States are hanging in the balance, of course, following President Donald Trump's threat of military action against the Western African country and also to cut off aid to the country over allegations of Christian persecution. It has been reported that Trump's threat has stirred unease in Nigeria's economic cycle, with warnings that the move could erode investor confidence and discourage potential investors from entering the market. For more on this, we are now joined on the line by Collins Negwe, who's of course Global Affairs Analyst and Senior Consultant at the Nigeria-Belgium-Luxembourg Business Forum. Mr. Negwe, thank you so much for making the time and welcome to Channel Africa.
Thank you, Innocent. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I mean, can you give us an overview of U.S.-Nigeria trade relations prior to these latest threats, and what is the current scale of structure of U.S.-Nigeria trade at the moment?
Sure. Let me say first and foremost, Innocent, that you were being kind when you described the situation as U.S. acting under the position of some sort of persecution. No, the U.S. is actually using the word Christian genocide. That is as seriously as they found it. So you were very kind to them when you use a milder word. Now, coming to the U.S.-Nigeria trade relations, well, the trade relation has historically been dominated by energy. For decades, crude oil made up 90% of Nigeria's export to the U.S., while America sent back refined petroleum, machinery, aircraft parts, and services. But that picture has changed significantly since U.S. shale boom reduced America's dependence on Nigerian oil. Today, total trade sits in the region of 8 to 10 billion annually. But the profile is also shifting. Energy is still there, but we are seeing faster growth in services, digital economy, partnerships, higher education, agriculture, and security cooperation. U.S. corporates, for instance, Chevron, Caterpillar, Google, Meta, and MasterCard are still very, very active. But China, the EU, and India have overtaken the US in share trade volume. So the relationship is still important, but no longer exclusive. As a matter of fact, the EU is now the largest trading bloc for Nigeria rather than the US like it used to be years back.
Yeah, and it does seem as though there's reliance from Nigeria to export crude oil to Nigeria, which brings me to my second question. Could the threats of aid cuts and military action have a major impact on Nigeria? And, how might Nigeria's trade relations with the US be impacted in this case?
There will be diplomatic shock waves. There is absolutely no doubt about that. But the real impact will depend on the scope. The US is no longer Nigeria's largest trading partner or donor. So the economic damage will be limited compared to, say, 20 years ago. However, the areas that will feel it most are security partnerships against terrorism, the menace of Boko Haram, health programs such as PAPFAR, and private sector investor confidence. These are going to be the victims. Markets don't like geopolitical uncertainty, as you know. And if Washington adopts a punitive language, investors begin to price in risk. The bigger consequence may be Nigeria, tilting further towards non-Western partners. China, India, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, who don't, attach a political condition to cooperation. So yes, the impact is less economic and more geopolitical.
Yeah. And in your view, Mr. Nekwa, I'm keen to pick your mind. What are the risks of U.S. businesses in Nigeria if indeed U.S. foreign policy becomes more coercive rather than cooperative?
Well, if the U.S. switches from partnership to pressure, American companies could become collateral damage in three ways. One, market loss. Nigeria can simply turn to alternative suppliers, and China is always waiting. Number two, regulatory retaliation. Governments under pressure often respond with tougher tax audits, license delays, or preferential treatment for non-US competition. That's number two. And then number three, equally important, is reputational damage. Africa is increasingly assertive in global diplomacy. A cohesive U.S. policy risks being framed as neo-imperial, and that public sentiment can quickly turn America-U.S. brands. It can turn against it. We are no strangers to the issues between France and the former colonial, enclaves in Africa, and how, French people were driven away. It all started, in such little ways. So in short, business hates hostility. Yeah. Partnership grows markets, and pressure actually shrinks markets. This is something America has got to be, very much aware of.
Yeah, Mr. Nekwe, just before I let you go, what would be the likely humanitarian and developmental challenges of the U.S. cutting of aid? And I know this is Donald Trump's sword of cutting aid when he doesn't understand another country. In this case, in Nigeria, given the country's population size and economic challenges?
Talking about population, with over 200 million people, high unemployment and multidimensional poverty, Nigeria is not a country where aid cuts go unnoticed. People are going to feel it. The U.S. is a key backer of HIV programs in Nigeria, malaria prevention, school feeding projects, and, peace building in the Northeast. If that support is pulled, the immediate victims will not be politicians. It will be children, displaced communities, and fragile local economies already battling food inflation and climate shocks. The developmental cost is, not just economic, it is human. And there is a broader point. If the U.S. exits, humanitarian space, it creates a vacuum that other global powers, sometimes with very different strategic values, feel. China is on the standby, Turkey is there, India is hovering around. So there are just many countries that are ready to step in when America creates a vacuum.
Yeah, indeed. Considering the size of the population, it will not go unnoticed, that aid cut. But that's where we'll leave it. Thank you so much for making time, Mr. Nekwe.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Innocent, for having me.
There you have it. That was Collins Nekwe, who's, of course, Global Affairs Analyst and Senior Consultant at the Nigeria-Belgium-Luxembourg Business Forum. That conversation brings us to exactly 16:22 Central African Time.
The Upside, taking the African perspective to fresh levels. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to The Upside. All things that torture. That's the name of the album.
Torture literally means that someone who bears a torch, like a torture, like not T-U-R, but T-O-R-C-H-E-R. So like it's a Statue of Liberty holding a torch, like keeping it burning, you know what I'm saying? Like it just implies the fact that we have to inspire one another. We have to tell it through the music and reach out to the people to know that, listen, you got light inside of you that has to bend. You know what I'm saying? Like keep it burning. Like don't let nobody dim your shine.
The Upside, live and real. It's dynamic. Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
On to this story now. More than 6 years after the tragic crash of Ethiopian airline Flight 302, Boeing is set to face its first civil trial over the Ethiopian crash. This after families of two victims seek compensation. The world's largest aerospace company has already settled most of the dozens of wrongful deaths lawsuit that families of the victims filed against the aircraft maker after the March 2019 crash. Yesterday, the federal court stated the jury selection process for the two remaining cases. For more on this, we're now joined on the line by aviation analyst Guy Lich. Guy, thank you so much for making the time, Guy. Sorry for pronouncing.
I'll be Guy for the day.
All right, I'm so sorry about that. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for making the time. Perhaps let me begin by asking you, the trial will be, dealing with compensation rather than liability. Did Boeing accept liability in previous cases, and what implications does this have for corporate accountability in aviation manufacturing?
Yeah, hi, Innocent, and good afternoon, and nice to be with you and your listeners. Very much so. The Boeing has properly accepted liability for these crashes and has apologized as well. So, as you say, it's all over now, bar the fighting for the actual money. And in fact, it seems to me that actually, it's quite hard to put this in delicate terms, but it seems to me that the survivors, or not the survivors, the people who are benefiting from the deaths, the beneficiaries, if you like, have actually done reasonably well. I mean, the Ethiopian crash has cost Boeing $1.5 billion. That's across 150 or 145 people. So it's pretty much $10 million a piece, which is pretty good going by, if I may say, be so bold as to say African standards. It's probably a lot more, far more than any of those lives were insured for. And by the way, similar numbers exist for the Lion Air crash in Indonesia, which happened about 6 weeks earlier. So, but there are still 14 of the passengers who decided not to accept Boeing's settlement and have decided to litigate it themselves, as it were. But at this stage, only two of the litigants have made it to court.
Yeah, and we understand that Boeing has entered into this confidential settlement with almost all the families of the victims. Now, the question is, with Boeing, settling versus taking cases to full trial, will this pose any risks to the company going forward?
No, I think that the Boeing stock price, share price, took I think just over a 1% hit when they announced a 1.5 billion rand, dollar penalty and settlement already. So I think to a large extent the market factors in additional costs. Since we're only dealing with two people at this stage, and there's a fair chance that they might not even get more than $5 or $10 million for it. So I don't think it'll move the needle on the dial at all. Bear in mind, the size of Boeing is absolutely enormous.
Yeah, and Guy, from the standpoint of aviation in the continent, right, and emerging markets, how might this incident really, or subsequent litigations, affect, the attitude towards aircraft financing, leasing, and safety oversight in those regions?
Well, as you pointed out, it was 6 years ago. And since then, there's been a lot of water under the bridge in terms of recriminations and tightening up. I mean, the biggest single lesson that was learned from this whole thing was that Boeing was far too cozy with the Federal Aviation Administration and inspectors in particular. So the FAA was allowing, in many aspects, Boeing to self-regulate. Well, that has ended now, and they've created a proper wall between the regulator and the actual manufacturer. And I think that'll go a long way to satisfying or appeasing any fears. And indeed, I mean, we've seen the reality now that I don't think you, if I may presume as much, or anyone else would really be would have a significant fear in flying a Boeing Max. You wouldn't say, I'm not going to fly a Boeing Max, I'm going to fly another airline that may operate Airbuses. That's just not happening. I think people have come to accept that the system is fundamentally incredibly safe. The checks and balances are all there. Yes, they've had to have been tightened up, but I mean, we haven't seen another Boeing accident, a Boeing 737 Max accident since then, and I think it proves that it's now properly sorted.
Yeah, and moving to other developments, and we're hearing that Emirates has announced that it will be increasing its service to Cairo by adding a fifth daily flight on the Dubai-Cairo route. And I'm keen to know from you, or to hear from you, how significant is Cairo becoming the most served African city in Emirates, and network in terms of the standing in Africa's aviation landscape? How significant is that?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously just the addition of one more flight, taking the total up to 5 or in some cases 6, is not that significant. It's just an incremental increase. But I think that the bigger picture is hugely significant. I mean, we would love to see 5 Emirates Boeing 777-300s come to Johannesburg every day. It would be absolutely fantastic. So South Africa is trailing a distant third, or rather behind Morocco and then Egypt, in terms of our ability to attract tourists. And don't forget that there are other airline servicing the route as well. Egypt Air also flies to Dubai. So then the numbers of seats, of number of people, is absolutely extraordinary. But the fact of the matter is, Dubai is a hub. And most of the people wanting to fly to the Middle East will fly to either Dubai or one of the other Emirates points. So it is significant, and the fact of the matter is that Cairo and Egypt broadly is doing all the right things in terms of attracting more and more people to come to its tourist destinations.
And wouldn't you agree that this will indeed, help Egypt in terms of economic recovery, because more flights also support trade and cargo flows?
Well, absolutely, especially considering Egypt's number one industry is in fact tourism. So it's a really positive sign that the numbers are there, that the key airlines are able to fill that many more seats. I mean, a Boeing 777-300 is a 350-seat aircraft. So it's a huge number of additional seats coming in, which is good for the industry all around. And it just shows that one has to be competitive. I just want to take our listeners briefly back to the problems that we're having in South Africa with the ATNS ability to maintain flight procedures means that tourists cannot get connecting flights or cannot reliably get connecting flights back to Johannesburg or Cape Town. So tourism takes an enormous step back, and again we will lose out to more competitive destinations like Egypt, like Morocco, like Kenya, as long as we persist with these sort of maladministration problems.
Aviation analyst Guy Litch, thank you so much for indeed making the time. It was incredibly insightful listening to your insights.
Thank you. Cheers.
All right, there you have it. That conversation brings us to exactly 16:32, and we go straight to market indicators.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Good afternoon, I'm Nosipho Zuma. In your business indicators this hour, $1 is trading at 17 Rand 30 in South Africa. In Botswana is trading at 13 Pula 359. In Namibia, it is trading at 17 Namibian dollars 31. The Zambian kwacha is trading at 22 kwacha 205. In Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 48. In Ethiopia, it is trading at 153 birr 358. In Uganda, it is trading at 3,000 shilling 462. In Tanzania, it is trading at 2,000 shilling 933. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,445. In Egypt, the dollar is trading at 47 Egyptian pound 206. In Tunisia, it is trading at 2 dinar 933. In Algeria, it is trading at 129 dirham 656. In Morocco, the dollar will cost you 9 dirham 19. In Angola, the dollar is trading at 912 kwanza, while the Congolese franc is trading at 2,223 to the US dollar. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,987 and platinum at $1,551 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $64.13 a barrel. Now, for any business news stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I'm Nosipho Zuma.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
A very big thank you to Nosipho there. It looks like Kaizer Chiefs is back to winning ways. Fikile Lungwati has more on sport. Fikile, very good afternoon to you.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Good afternoon, Innocent. We begin with sports in business and the sports minister, South Africa's sports minister of sport, Gayton McKenzie, says his department will pay nearly $573,000 in bonuses to South Africa's national teams, with more than of that total half going to Bafana Bafana. The payouts will also go to Banyana Banyana, $57,000, the Proteas, $57,000, and the Springbok women, $57,000. Amajita, also $57,000, but Amajimbos will get $29,000. But it is the senior men's national football team that will be smiling the widest, taking home the largest share of the incentive package. The minister says this is not merely a token of appreciation, but a deliberate move to motivate the squad ahead of the upcoming international fixtures. He says this investment is a testament to their hard work and the pride they instill in the nation. Meanwhile, the Deputy Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Peace Mabe, has confirmed that the money promised to the Proteas women after their World Cup heroics has already been paid. At the welcome media briefing last night, immediately after landing back in the country, Mabe said an amount of $57,000 had been paid as a way of thanking the team for representing the country with distinction, where they fell just short of the trophy just 3 days ago in India. Mabe also said the Proteas women should never have to fly normal e-coach for national assignment, but should rather travel with chartered flights.
I can safely say that we've released the money today. That money is going directly to support and to thank them for the efforts and the commitment that they have made. So you have $1 million in your account. I'm not sure how to define a player, but it is for players.
Golf, the prestigious 47th Central Durban Memorial Tournament is set to return to the challenging Royal Durban Golf Course on the 23rd of November, promising a spectacular day for local golfing community. Honoring the legacy of golf legend Sosunka Papa Sugulam, this year's edition is expected to draw a capacity of field of over 120 golfers. Meanwhile, excitement is building up around the prizes, which include Papa's famed putter and an automatic entry for all participants into a $3,000 hole-in-one competition. Here is Sunny Singh, the Central Durban Golf Club's public relations officer.
Way back in 1978, the club decided that it will host a tournament in memory of Papa Sugulam. Fortunately, it continued for many, many years. Come every year, we host this tournament and fund is given either to the Papua family then or to other charitable organizations. Yes, the hole-in-one is whereby you hit the ball off the tee and it goes into the hole on a par 3. If that happens, then you stand to win this year 50,000 rands.
And let's end with young British-Nigerian tennis player donates to junior stars in Lagos. 16-year-old British-Nigerian tennis player Talia Ayandare, who competes on the ITF circuit, says the idea for Pay It Forward began earlier this year after an eye-opening experience in Kenya. Talia Ayandare brought smile to the faces of the young players at the country club Ikeja as she donated dozens of tennis shoes to participants of the ongoing ITF World Tennis Tour Juniors J30 Lagos. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Figile Lungwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Get the news, music, and lifestyle of Africa on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Where Africa's voices rise with stories that matter, we lead the conversation.
Channel Africa, the African perspective.
All right, let's pick up on this story now. South African entrepreneur and executive chairman of Oppenheimer Generations Foundation, Jonathan Oppenheimer, has urged delegates attending the two-day South African Future Trust Summit to use it to build networks that will grow their businesses. The summit is in its third year and brings together top entrepreneurs, innovators, and change makers as they share groundbreaking insights and strategies. Thami Ngubeni has the details.
The South African Future Trust Summit, SAFT, is taking place at the Sandton Convention Centre. The two-day event in its third year brings together top entrepreneurs, innovators, and change makers as they share groundbreaking insights and strategies. The summit is also hosting an exclusive exhibitions and high-impact networking sessions and a $1 million pitch finale. South African entrepreneur and executive chairman of Oppenheimer Generations Foundation, Jonathan Oppenheimer, has urged delegates attending the summit to use it to build networks that will grow their businesses further.
48 hours to be here. Make it valuable. Build the network. Make the connections. Make sure that these 48 hours create value for you. Don't come here and enjoy the good coffee and the great food. That's good. Do that. But the most important, use your time valuably to expand your network and make your business better. It's all about valuable use.
Working with all spheres of society can change the future of the country.
And we're the people who will get out there in front of us of everything and make the future for our country. And the entrepreneur, the small business, is the cutting edge. It's the tip of the spear of that achievement. And you in this room are the tip of that tipping spear. And I really, really believe that we, working with government, working with big business, working with communities, working with churches, working with religious groups, working with every single partner that we can find, can make the future of South Africa better than it is today.
The summit this year is in partnership with Standard Bank. As part of day one of the summit, Jonathan Oppenheimer and Standard Bank's Chief Executive Officer for Business and Commercial Banking, Bill Blackie, opened the summit with a discussion on the importance of small-medium enterprises, SMEs, in driving economic growth in Africa and the role that institutions like Standard Bank and SAFT must play in empowering SMEs to reach their full potential.
Jonathan and his father were absolutely groundbreaking in what they did in that very difficult time. They disbursed R1 billion. We did 250 million rand. That's a very significant contribution. In that context, protected 3,500 businesses, 22,000 employees. And the purpose of that is actually because it goes to Standard Bank's purpose. Standard Bank's purpose is Africa's our home, we drive her growth. And so there's complete alignment between what Jonathan talks about, unlocking the potential of entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial businesses.
For Channel Africa News, I am Thami Ngubeni in Johannesburg.
Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
All right, on to this story now. Delegates at the Abu Dhabi International Petroleum Exhibition and Conference say there are good signs for healthy oil demand going into 2026. The event also demonstrated how artificial intelligence is reshaping the future of energy. Now, the event is the largest and most influential energy gathering in the world, encompassing oil and gas, AI, and the transformation of energy into the future. For more on this, we're now joined on the line by Devon Pillay, Segment President for Heavy Industries at Schneider Electric. Mr. Pillay, thank you so much for making the time and welcome to Channel Africa.
Thank you, Innocent. Good evening. Good evening to you and to your listeners and viewers as well. Thank you.
Yeah, indeed. Then what key technological strategies is your company showcasing at this year's event that will really help in the acceleration of the energy transition?
Yeah, thank you. It's been fascinating to see the convergence of energy and automation and technology. I think it's been so pronounced this year as energy companies battle and grapple with this challenge of efficiency, trying to get more scale, but also, get optimized production, given the volatility in pricing and also volatility on the demand side. So it's quite a I would say, a synonymous showing of multiple vendors, all speaking around the same language of how the whole artificial intelligence explosion is now having center stage within the energy sector, and most notably, on full show at ADIPEC this week. So I believe that our focus this week is really bringing together this world, trying to decode the understanding of how AI can influence the optimization, but also get to a point of autonomous operations, which I believe is a central theme of many companies in Middle East and in the region.
Yeah, indeed. And it's often said that collaboration is key in achieving tremendous results. Are there any major projects or partnerships you hope to get at the ADIPEC this year?
Indeed, Innocent. The challenge for any technology that's scaling at the pace that AI is scaling, and we also know that the market dynamics are so fluid. Collaboration is absolutely key, and no one party has all the answers. With regards to bringing solutions to this new way of working, but also trying to understand and pivot around these technological shifts, and they're quite tectonic in nature. So I feel that there's so much of cumulative knowledge around ADIPEC, and it's all primed for partnerships. So today, we focused on working with vendors, partners that are in the ecosystem of creating cleaner, smarter technologies, blending not only the automation capabilities and energy technologies that we bring, but also bringing capabilities as far as answering the how to decarbonize, to manage this conundrum between energy demand and doing it sustainably and safely, as well as getting optimized production and meeting this growing demand that we find not only from data centers but also industrialized economies.
And I was about to ask some of your, what are you pursuing in the region to promote clean energy solutions? But how important is the Middle East and Africa's market in your company's global energy strategy?
So Middle East, Africa, certainly it's kind of a heterogeneous market, right? We've got huge advancements in specific areas, and on the Middle East side, we find that there's abundance of energy, but the way the Middle East is pivoting towards changing the shape and shape shifting around the fact that it was an energy dominant market, and bringing, for example, becoming an AI hub and understanding it much better than perhaps its peers globally, and bringing all of this expertise not only for their own purposes with respect to their own enterprises, but being able to export this capability as well. And we see this spinning off into Africa with its close nexus. And in fact, there's a long history of collaboration and mutual investments in the region. So we've got the proximity. And from Schneider Electric's perspective, we obviously operate on a zone basis, a hub model, which is center stage, of course, in the UAE. And the leadership and the teams have scopes that expand towards Africa as well. So that nexus and that engagement and foundational capability building is so powerful for us, because as we learn from much more advanced economies, we're able to replicate that throughout the rest of the continent.
Yeah, and Mr. Pillay, how can countries in Africa, in your view, leverage Schneider Electric's technology to really accelerate industrial decarbonization? And how are you planning to carry the community with you? Because I would imagine change sometimes is scary for many people, particularly when it comes to livelihoods. People believe that this clean energy might come with job losses. How are you carrying the community, and how can African countries really leverage your technology?
No, that's a great question, Innocent. The reality is that business cannot operate in a vacuum. And I'm a child of the African soil myself, hailing from South Africa, and I understand the complexity of economic inflection points. And whilst we all understand the importance of greening the environment, greening our energy mix, given all the climate crisis that's we part of that, let's say as victims of the climate crisis, and we see it every day. We also have to understand the implications on society. And so Schneider Electric's foundation, as an example, has mandates to support the education and, of course, through the TVET colleges in Africa and South Africa specifically, working with TVETs to scale up the technical competence of people, training something like 10,000 electricians a year, because again, that's a massive demand, and being able to pivot towards this new, cleaner, more sustainable energy mix, which South Africa has very progressively pivoted towards. And obviously, from that perspective, moving away from fossil fuel energies, but being wherever it's possible to abate those industries, or how to abate industries to help mitigate the carbon footprint that these industries have. So on two fronts, we see it as obviously dependent on building the foundations of any industrial economy. We've got to balance the fact that we've got an energy deficit in the region, supported by obviously the infusion of renewables. And as I said, we've made great strides in the region, but there's more to be done. But also not neglecting the fact that we are also richly endowed with natural gas resources in the region, and being able to tap into that to liberate economies, to be part of this global, supply side that the world over is requiring. As I said earlier, the energy demands are exponentially increasing where traditional sources and even renewables may not be adequate. So you've got to manage a blend of mix of energy. And of course, also, as I said, liberating the economy by creating new opportunities, but being on top of the curve with respect to development and taking everybody along on this journey.
Yeah. Devon Pillay, segment president at Heavy Industries at Schneider Electric. Thank you so much for indeed making the time.
Most welcome. Thanks for having me.
Ready to connect, innovate, and be inspired? It's all happening at Africa Tech Festival, where Africa's technology meets the world. From the 10th to the 13th of November in Cape Town, join global leaders, investors, and innovators driving the future of Africa's digital economy. Don't miss the continent's biggest week in tech. Get your pass now at africatechfestival.com.
Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
Now, for a look at the latest business and financial markets development, we're now joined on the line by Lindile Balkasoke. I'm told that he's not there yet. We'll go back to Lindile after this quick commercial break.
In this episode of Channel Africa Conversations, Peter talks to Dr. Thulisile Buddha, an academic, author, and an expert in indigenous knowledge systems. Join us for a compelling discussion on preserving African languages and traditions in the digital era. Dr. Thulisile unpacks the role of educators, explorers, and how technologies like AI can support cultural preservation, and challenges us to rethink how we honor African heritage. You can find the episode on YouTube, SABC Plus, and on our website, channelafrica.co.za. This episode is a must-listen for educators, creators, and change makers across the continent. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
All right, South Africa's drive towards universal health coverage, UHC, has received strong international support, with experts highlighting its potential to transform the country's healthcare landscape. This week, South Africa's Department of Health, in collaboration with the London School of Economics and Political Science and the Clinton Health Access Initiative, hosted a public panel discussion on accelerating universal health coverage and health security in South Africa. Channel Africa's reporter Michael Mbewe filed this report.
Universal health coverage and health security are two of the most urgent priorities in global health today, and achieving them simultaneously will enable countries like South Africa to improve health outcomes, protect their populations from future pandemics, generate economic growth, and reduce entrenched inequalities in society. This public event brought together leading voices in global health to engage South African policymakers, practitioners, academics, students, civil society, and the wider public in a dynamic discussion on how UHC and health security can be advanced together. Professor David McCoy from the United Nations University's International Institute for Global Health said he's fully behind South Africa's NHI initiative.
I agree with the support for national health insurance, because it is essentially the health system towards a universal health system. So this is really an expression of a health system that is about social solidarity. It's about equity, first and foremost. And these are, of course, principles that you either support or you don't. And if you support these principles, then the way to move forward is through a universal health system.
He said this initiative is imperative to undo the injustices of the past.
And I think in South Africa in particular, this idea of creating a health system that advances equity is all the more important because of the historical and structural factors that have created and left this as possibly, if not the most unequal country in the world, one of them. As I understand it, 0.1% of the population owns 25% of the country's wealth. I also understand that it's only 3,500 individuals who own 15% of the country's wealth.
Professor McCoy noted that this has created a huge wealth distribution gap between the rich and the poor, a worldwide phenomenon.
So there's huge inequitable distribution of private wealth, but at the same time, over the last 3 or 4 decades, South Africa has seen a divergence in the amount of private wealth relative to public wealth.
All right, there you have it. That was Michael Mbewe's report there, talking about issues that has to do with health in the continent. But up next is Vid Afrique with Joël. Colleague, a very good evening to you.
Bonjour, Innocent.
Bonjour, bonjour. Innocent, right?
Innocent, in French.
What can we expect on the show?
Alors, sur Vue d'Afrique aujourd'hui, bonjour à tous les auditeurs de Canal Afrique, particulièrement de Vue d'Afrique. Il sera question aujourd'hui du Cameroun, plus de 2000 militants de l'opposition en détention. Et nous parlerons aussi du Niger, où 3 journalistes ont été placés sous mandat de dépôt après avoir été arrêtés samedi pour complicité de diffusion de documents de nature à troubler l'ordre public. Restez donc connectés, c'est tout à l'heure sur Vue d'Afrique. Merci Innocent.
All right, there you have it, and we're looking forward to the show. Indeed, that's my lot on this installment of Africa in Business. Of course, we've been looking at the issues around the OPEC summit. It's going to be interesting to see what comes of that event, with the issues of sustainability, the issues around energy transition, carrying the community along. And also we spoke about the US-Nigeria trade there, with tensions around allegations of Christian persecution. Of course, Colin Snecker was talking to us there about that particular issue, saying that it's going to cause a lot of damage to the economy of Nigeria. But over and above, thank you so much for listening to Africa in Business with myself, Innocent Semosa. From myself and the team behind the scenes, it's goodbye and God bless.